All right, so we just finished chapter 3, and chapter 3 is one of my favorite chapters in the entire book. It's all about extreme ownership, and the reason it's one of my favorite chapters is because of how close it hits to home and like how much it actually changed my life, because I can remember when I started taking ownership in my life, how much it changed it and how quick it changed it. And like I remember it very vividly. I was working for the county and I was running supposed to be running a blade for them, but instead I was running a water truck because I found out I was good in a truck. So they put me back in a truck, and they tied me with this one blade hand that was just really hard to deal with, and she was just very manipulative, to say the least. And so I spent about 6 months just playing her game, and then finally I was like, screw this. What can I do differently to change the outcome of the situation? And then once I started asking myself that question, like, it got considerably easier for me. It didn't happen overnight, but like I remember praying for God to like remove the calluses from my heart against her so that I could actually like move forward and not have those bitter feelings and stuff like that, and doing visualization techniques before I ever knew what visualization techniques were. But like that one question changed my life so much. What could I have done differently to change the outcome? And the truth is like that right there is where leadership lives. It's in the gaps. It's not on the spotlight. It's not on the stage. It's in the gaps. And that's where I really learned that leadership isn't about fair. It's about faithful. Because, man, life isn't fair. And when you're the leader, you're definitely not doing the least amount of work. You're not doing the same amount of work as everybody else. You're doing more work for it. And the people who go, I've got to be paid more to take a leadership role, you're not cut out for leadership. You're not cut out for, I'll do it when you give me money to do it. You're not cut out for leadership. That's not the way it works. You step up to be a leader, and then you're rewarded, you're compensated for what you've done, not what you can do. And so if you have that thought process right now and you're reading this book, like if you're going through this and you go, man, I wish I could make more money, wish I could be a leader, do more than you're paid to do. Like, for reals, if you do more than you're paid to do, then you will eventually be paid to do more than you do. But it's about taking that risk, it's about doing it, and it's about being unfair and being faithful. You can't lead if you're always defending your image. Like, that's probably one of the biggest things that I pulled out of this chapter, was that, like, as I sit there and I think about this a lot, like, if you're constantly defending your image as to, like, where you're going and what you're doing and trying to like, stand up for yourself and defend yourself and what you said and why you said it and why you did it, you're going to fail. You're going to struggle. It's going to be really, really hard, because if you spend all of your time defending your image, like, this actually comes in later. It comes in later in the book, but we talk about, there was a deal locally with firefighters in the volunteer fire department, the board of directors for it, and the people who spent the entire time defending themselves failed miserably, and they couldn't figure out why they failed miserably. And it's because, like, you don't need to defend yourself all the time. You just need to go lead and take action. That's going to get you way more than actually defending yourself. When you take ownership, though, that's when you take pride in everything that you touch, and that's probably one of the biggest things that I can think of is there, and that's what I see the most in my people, and what I look for in the people I lead is, like, do they take ownership? Can they take ownership in everything they touch? And if not, how do I either get them to take ownership in it, or what changes do I need to make in order to get them where they need to be, or maybe not. Maybe they don't belong on the team, right? The people I look for that get promoted into leadership roles, they stop asking why they're not getting promoted, and they start taking ownership. Like, I have somebody right now that's moving into a team lead position on our team, and the whole reason they're moving into a team lead position is because they stepped up. Everybody else stepped out. We hired somebody. We transitioned somebody from sales to operations to help with back end stuff and uploading documents and stuff like that. Very administrative heavy tasks. And the truth is like, this is a great person. And the person who's getting promoted to team lead is the only one who stepped up to train him. Somebody else on the team goes, I'm not getting paid to do this, I'm not going to do it. Well, you're never going to get paid to do it then. You're going to be stuck where you are. You want to grow? You want to get more money? You want to do better? You've got to progress to that next level. Like, you've got to start doing stuff you're not paid to do today. You got to take ownership in what you're doing. How you handle your current situation determines with what you're going to be trusted with next. Like, throughout life, every time I've ever seen that is that, God is not going to give you more than what you can handle. I've said that and heard that I don't know how many times. But it's one of those things that it's like, I don't know that we actually truly understand that. And like, how you handle what you currently have will determine what he gives you next. Because if you handle a small idea with grace and dignity and action, he's going to give you bigger ideas, and they're going to continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger until one day they're so big that you have a whole team that does them for you. And that's probably one of the biggest things that I've seen. And if you, like, a lot of people think that if you raise your level of potential, that's what makes you a real leader. But it's when you raise your level of ownership. That's what people love. That's what people follow, is when you raise that level of ownership instead of just your potential. Because, reading this book is potential energy. It's potential knowledge. Taking action on what you learn, though, that's where the real gold is. And I want you to understand that. Like, that's probably one of the biggest things that I see people have mistakes with, is they don't take action on it. And so they're not raising their level of ownership, And that kind of leads me to my next point here. God is not in the business of promoting entitlement. He looks at how you take care of what you already have. And I do the same thing with my people. If you take care of your clients really well, I can promote you. I can move you to the next level. I can get you to where you understand more. But if you don't, I can't. I can't promote you. Like, if we're taking care of clients, I cannot. If you have half your clients are 50% compliance, there's a problem. And if you're saying, well, they won't contact me back, there's a problem. That's not ownership. Right? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you have to not feel entitled in order to truly get the promotion. You have to stop caring about the promotion and start just taking action. And I've seen this, I don't know how many times. Blame is a habit. It starts really small, but it's kind of like a spark in dry grass. It blows up fast. Fast. Blame is the fastest thing that will kill the entire machine. I explain it like a hydraulic leak in a hose. It's a pinhole, but left undone, it expands and it can take down the entire machine, and then it craters the engine, craters the hydraulic pump, and you got to do a lot of work to the engine, a lot of work to the machine to get it back up and going again. If you're not a machine person, you may not understand that one. But it's same thing. You think about, like, you poke yourself if you have thin blood and you start, you poke yourself and you start bleeding. What happens if that doesn't clot up? If it doesn't get stopped? If you don't put pressure on it, you're gonna bleed out, and then it kills the entire machine. And I kind of want you guys to understand that. Like, that's probably one of the things to like really understand. Is like, I call that the compound effect, and like blame compounds, but ownership compounds too. So if you can get people to take ownership, if you start taking ownership, you gotta start with you first. You take ownership in everything you do, that's going to compound. It's going to go. And if you switch that from blaming other people, from saying, well, she did this, well, he did this, right? If you go back to when I worked for the county, when I stopped saying, well, the reason I'm not successful is because she's hard to work with. Nobody wants to work with her. When I flipped that and I said, what can I do to CYA for me? What can I do to cover my own assets? What can I do to make sure that how can I change this situation? When I took ownership of it and I said, I can change this, what can I do? Now all of a sudden that compounded. Okay? What do you do and how do you react when things go wrong? That says a lot about who you are. Says a lot about about where you're going. It says a lot about your leadership style. Because when things are running smoothly, that's not real leadership. Like, things run smoothly all the time. People are like, oh, I can lead like a fool. Not really, because why? Like, you can't lead because you've only led when things are good. We don't know what happens when it hits the fan, right? And so you've got to think about like that. The hardest part of leadership is that even when you don't create the mess, you've got to clean it up. And you're going to. And you're going to love it with a smile on your face because you care. And I really I want that to sink in for you guys. Is that when you're a leader, you don't care about who created the mess. It's not about pointing fingers. You may need to figure it out a little bit so you can solve the problem so it doesn't happen again. But the truth is that like you're just there for the end cause. That's the whole reason you're there. You don't care anything else. Right? And that goes right into like, don't be afraid to serve yourself some crow. If you do something wrong, admit it. Be like, yo, hey, I messed up. Hey, I did this. Hey, right? Raise your hand and say that you did it wrong to your people. You'd be so surprised what that does when you hear that. Okay, and then this is probably one of the things that I learned a lot as a leader, and this really stood out to me, is like as a leader, I have to take time not only to speak other people's languages, and I'm not talking about Portuguese or Spanish or Filipino or whatever, I'm talking about speak the way that the way they speak. So not only do I need to know how they speak, but they need to know how I speak. They need to know that whenever I come at them really quick, fast, and in a hurry in 3 words, I'm not upset. I just want an answer of where we are, right? And they think it's short because they communicate differently than I do, and that's okay. But you have to take time to teach your people that, because if you don't, they're never going to know. They're never going to have a clue, right? Leadership doesn't start with who caused the problem. It's about who's willing to fix it. We kind of talked about that, right? Like, leadership isn't like not cleaning up messes or not being afraid to clean up messes. Leadership is being willing to fix the problem, owning the mistakes, and allowing your people to own mistakes is not failure. It's an opportunity, and that's another giant thing, is that like when you own your mistakes, when you teach your people to own their mistakes, it's not failure, and it shouldn't be failure in their eyes or yours. It should be an opportunity for growth. Leadership is full of mistakes. Like, it's part of the starter pack. And I really just, like, as you guys go through this and as you're thinking about all this, there's so much good stuff in here that you can pull out of this. And the point that I want to leave you with is this. Leadership that weaponizes shame makes people look for the door and stop trying. Think about the last job you left. Think about the last group that you left. Think about the last thing that you didn't feel welcome at. Did they weaponize shame? Did they make you feel bad about something? Probably, right? That's probably why you wanted out, because if you're happy, you're not leaving. If you're happy, you're not wanting to go anywhere. And I really want you guys to hear that as we move forward, because it's so important that like ownership is not a strategy. It's a way of life. And that's the whole point of this chapter. And it's the way I live. And I find that personally, whenever I let go of ownership, whenever I start going, well, you did this, well, you did that, well, if you'd have done this different, right? I start failing. And not in a good way, okay? Watch what happens when you make it okay to fail in your own mind, and when you make it okay for your team to fail. You guys, I've so enjoyed this so far. I'm looking forward to chapter 4. Let's dive in and see what's next.